In February 1959, 9 experienced hikers and mountaineers embarked on an expedition to the Ural Mountains, led by Igor Dyatlov, a seasoned athlete and experienced mountaineer. Their destination was the summit of Mount Otorten, a challenging trek that would test their skills and endurance, as well as push them to their limits in the harsh winter conditions.
The team had been planning this trip for months, and they were all excited to take on the challenge of conquering one of the most remote and unforgiving mountain ranges in the world. But what happened during that fateful trip would leave the world baffled and fascinated for decades to come, sparking a wave of interest and speculation that would continue to grow and evolve over the years.
The group consisted of seasoned athletes and friends from the Ural Polytechnic Institute, all in their early 20s, with a passion for adventure and a thirst for exploration. They were well equipped and prepared for the harsh winter conditions, with warm clothing, sturdy tents, and plenty of food, as well as a wealth of experience and knowledge that they had gained from their previous expeditions. As they ascended higher into the mountains, they encountered increasingly severe weather, with temperatures plummeting to -30 degrees Celsius and blinding snowstorms that reduced visibility to almost zero. On February 2nd, the group arrived at a campsite near the mountain, where they set up their tents and settled in for the night, exhausted but exhilarated by the challenges they had faced so far. You're watching Mind Blown, where we uncover the stories that defy explanation, and the Dyatlov Pass incident is one of the most enduring and intriguing mysteries of the 20th century. The group's journey was supposed to be a thrilling adventure, but it ended in tragedy, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions and unexplained events that would haunt the world for decades to come.
Several days after the group failed to return, a search party was dispatched to look for them, and what they found was shocking. The group's tent had been ripped open from the inside, and the hikers' belongings, including their shoes and warm clothing, were still inside, as if they had fled in a state of panic, leaving behind everything they needed to survive.
Here is where the story takes a turn. The investigation into the hikers' deaths revealed a series of bizarre and unexplained events that would challenge our understanding of human behavior and the power of nature. The bodies of the hikers were found scattered across the mountain, some with severe internal injuries, including broken ribs and fractured skulls, as well as strange burns and radiation poisoning that would add to the mystery and intrigue of the incident. One of the hikers was found to be missing her tongue, while another had a severe burn on his arm, and the investigation found no explanation for these injuries, which would remain one of the most enduring and baffling aspects of the case. The cause of death was attributed to a combination of hypothermia, trauma, and unknown factors, which would leave the world wondering what really happened on that fateful night. The Dyatlov Pass incident has sparked intense debate and speculation over the years, with theories ranging from Yeti attacks to military experiments gone wrong, and it's because it challenges our understanding of human behavior and the power of nature. The fact that 9 experienced hikers could die under such mysterious circumstances raises questions about our own vulnerability and the unpredictability of the natural world, and it's a reminder that even in the modern age, there are still many things that we don't understand and can't explain. The incident has become a source of fascination and intrigue, and it continues to capture the imagination of people around the world, inspiring countless books, films, and documentaries that would attempt to shed light on the mystery. The question that haunts us is, what could have driven these experienced hikers to flee their tent in such a state of panic, leaving behind their warm clothing and supplies? And what was the catalyst for the events that would unfold? Was it a natural phenomenon, a wild animal, or something more sinister? And how did it manage to cause such widespread panic and chaos among the group? As we delve deeper into the mystery, we begin to realize that the truth may be more complex and nuanced than we initially thought, and that the evidence points to a combination of factors, including the hikers' inexperience with the extreme weather conditions, the possibility of carbon monoxide poisoning from a nearby mine, and the psychological effects of isolation and fear that would have been exacerbated by the harsh conditions and the group's growing sense of unease. On February 26, 1959, search volunteers discovered the first two bodies beneath a large Siberian cedar tree, approximately 1.5 kilometers from the tent. Yuri Doroshenko, 21, and Yuri Krivonischenko, 23, were found wearing only underwear, barefoot in the snow, with evidence of a fire they had attempted to start using broken branches from the cedar. The lower branches of the tree had been snapped off up to a height of 5 meters, and bark was found embedded under the men's fingernails, suggesting they had climbed the tree in desperation, possibly to scout for the tent's location or to escape something on the ground.
Their bodies showed signs of severe frostbite, and Krivonischenko had a piece of flesh bitten from his own hand, indicating extreme duress in the final moments before death.
3 more bodies, Zinaida Kolmogorova, 22, Rustam Slobodin, 23, and Igor Dyatlov himself, 23, were found between the cedar tree and the tent, positioned as though they had been trying to return to camp when they succumbed to hypothermia. Slobodin had a hairline fracture to his skull, though investigators deemed it non-fatal. The remaining 4 hikers, Ludmila Dubinina, 20, Semyon Zolotaryov, 38, Alexander Kolevatov, 24, and Nikolai Thibault-Brignol, 23, were not located until May 4th, buried under 4 meters of snow in a ravine 75 meters from the cedar. These 4 bore the most catastrophic injuries. Thibault-Brignol's skull was crushed, Dubinina and Zolotaryov had multiple broken ribs with flail chest trauma, and Dubinina was the one missing her tongue, lips, and part of her upper lip, along with her eyes. The answer was in the evidence all along, but no one looked there, and it's only by re-examining the evidence that we can begin to piece together the events of that fateful night.
The investigation found a series of strange footprints and marks on the snow, which were initially attributed to the hikers themselves, but upon closer examination, these marks appear to be inconsistent with the hikers' movements and behavior, as if they were being chased or followed by something or someone.
This revelation raises more questions than answers, and we are left wondering what really happened on that mountain, and what was the catalyst for the events that would unfold.
The footprints seem to be heading in the opposite direction, as if the hikers were being pursued by something, and the sense of panic and fear that this would have inspired would have been overwhelming. Lead investigator Lev Ivanov closed the criminal case on May 28, 1959, concluding that all 9 hikers had perished due to a compelling natural force that they were unable to overcome.
Ivanov's report noted that 8 or 9 sets of footprints led away from the tent in an orderly fashion, not running, toward the tree line, suggesting the group left together in a controlled but urgent manner. Decades later, in 1990, Ivanov gave an interview to a Kazakh newspaper in which he admitted that Soviet officials had pressured him to close the case quickly and that he had personally observed strange orange spheres in the sky during the investigation period, which multiple witnesses in the Ural region also reported seeing in February and March of 1959.
In February 2019, the Russian Prosecutor General's office officially reopened the case, announcing they would examine 3 possible natural explanations: an avalanche, a snow slab, or a hurricane-force wind event. Prosecutor Andrei Kuryakov led the new investigation, which included a physical expedition to the pass in March 2019 and extensive computer modeling of wind patterns and snow accumulation at the specific slope angle of 28 degrees where the tent had been pitched. In July 2020, Kuryakov announced the official conclusion. The group had been struck by a delayed avalanche, specifically a small slab release, that partially collapsed the tent, causing the hikers to cut their way out and flee downhill in the dark, where they subsequently died of hypothermia while unable to locate their camp. In January 2021, a peer-reviewed study published in the journal Communications, Earth and Environment by researchers Alexander Puzrin of ETH Zurich and Johann Gaum of EPFL in Switzerland provided a biomechanical model supporting the avalanche theory. Using data from General Motors car crash tests on cadavers conducted in the 1970s, the researchers demonstrated that a snow slab just 5 meters wide and 0.5 meters deep
sliding on a slope of 28 degrees, could generate sufficient force to cause the chest and skull fractures found on the 4 bodies in the ravine, injuries consistent with being crushed while lying down in a tent. Their model also explained the time delay. The hikers' own excavation of the slope to create a flat tent platform destabilized the snow above, but the slab did not release until a katabatic wind event hours later deposited additional snow on the weakened layer. The Dyatlov Pass incident has also been compared to other similar incidents, such as the Kamardabin incident and the American Dyatlov Pass, and each of these incidents shares some similarities with the Dyatlov Pass incident, but they also have their own unique characteristics and circumstances. These incidents have sparked a wave of interest and speculation, and they continue to capture the imagination of people around the world, inspiring a wave of interest and debate that would continue to grow and evolve over the years. However, each incident has its own distinct characteristics, and they remain separate and distinct from one another, a reminder that even in the most seemingly inexplicable cases, there may be more to the story than initially meets the eye. The Kamardabin incident occurred in August 1993 on the Kamardabin mountain range near Lake Baikal in Siberia, when 6 members of a hiking group led by Lyudmila Korovina died under mysterious circumstances during a sudden storm. The sole survivor, a 17-year-old girl named Valentina Yudichenko, reported that her companions began collapsing one by one, experiencing convulsions, bleeding from the ears and mouth, and foaming at the mouth, symptoms inconsistent with simple hypothermia. Unlike the Dyatlov incident, this event took place in summer, with temperatures above freezing, making exposure an unlikely primary cause. Theories have included exposure to a toxic gas cloud from volcanic activity, an encounter with weaponized aerosols, or a sudden extreme drop in atmospheric pressure, but no official conclusion was ever reached by Russian authorities. The case known as the American Dyatlov Pass refers to the disappearance of 5 young men from Yuba City, California on February 24, 1978. Gary Mathias, 25, Jack Madruga, 30, Ted Weiher, 32, Bill Sterling, 29, and Jack Hewitt, 24. After attending a basketball game in Chico, the 5 men drove their Mercury Montego up a remote mountain road 70 miles from their destination for no apparent reason. Their car was found abandoned with a quarter tank of gas, unlocked, with snacks still inside. The engine worked perfectly. 4 of the 5 men were eventually found dead in the wilderness over the following months. Weiher's body was discovered inside a Forest Service trailer that contained enough food and heating supplies to sustain all 5 men for a year, yet he had starved over a period of 8 to 13 weeks, having eaten almost nothing. Gary Mathias was never found. The mountain where the Dyatlov group camped is called Kolotsyakal, which translates to Dead Mountain in the language of the indigenous Mansi people, a name that predates the 1959 incident by centuries. There was, in fact, a 10th member of the original expedition, Yuri Yudin, who turned back on January 28 due to a flare-up of chronic joint pain, making him the last person to see the group alive. Yudin spent the rest of his life tormented by survivors' guilt and became one of the foremost advocates for keeping the investigation open. He identified many of the personal items found at the scene and noted that several pieces of clothing found on the bodies in the ravine, including a pair of trousers and a sweater, had been cut from the bodies of those who died first and redistributed among the survivors. Evidence that some members of the group lived for hours after the initial event and made rational decisions about survival before they too perished in the freezing darkness of the Ural wilderness.